We are back with the shot of Business Central. We've got some interesting news planned for today. First of all, we want to start out with Microsoft has released the dates for the upcoming 2020 release Wave 1 that is planned. So the first date is January 27, 2020, which is when the release plans will be available. So you'll be able to see the features, what functionality, what all is coming in the first part of I guess April 1st for general availability. The next date is February 3rd, 2020, which is when they're saying early access will be available. Now, as my trusty co-host pointed out, when they say early access, they are most likely not meaning for Business Central. It could be for one of the other, softwares that are being updated at the time. And what we're seeing is for early access, it's probably, I don't know, what would you say, 3 to 4 weeks?
Couple weeks.
After that, couple weeks
before the general availability date,
yeah,
that a preview has been available.
Right.
At least for the last two Wave releases that have come out, the Wave 1 and Wave 2 for 2019, we saw that users could go in and create a sandbox for that new preview version a couple to a few weeks ahead of the general availability date.
Right.
But definitely not as far back, because that release plan document covers all of the Dynamics products.
Yeah.
So there may be other Dynamics products where the early preview is available much earlier.
Yeah.
But for Business Central, at least historically so far, we're seeing that it's really just a couple weeks. So, I wouldn't go out into your admin center and thinking you're going to create a preview sandbox
on February 3rd. Yeah, it's most likely not going to happen.
Probably not. Now, maybe we'll be surprised.
Maybe.
And that would be great. But I just wouldn't expect that.
And same holds true for the general availability date of April 1st. It's most likely not going to be April 1st when your tenant is updated. We're seeing anywhere from, let's just say, 3 to 6 weeks after.
Right.
So somewhere along there, you might get the update.
Yep.
But yeah, do not expect it on April 1st. So I like that they've put out the stuff already, letting us know the dates pretty early on. And it's coming fast. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think so. It's exciting because our next podcast will be after the 27th. So on our next podcast, we're going to be able to share a lot of what's planned for the Wave 1 2020 release.
Pretty crazy.
That's exciting.
And then I know you want to talk a little bit about app deployment and upgrades. What do you got for us?
Yeah. So one of the things that may have, if you're using Business Central Cloud, and as you've gone through the updates during 2019, you may have experienced this issue, which is that when your environment gets upgraded to the newest release, some of your extensions are uninstalled, while other extensions or apps remain installed. So what's the deal? What gives? Well, I came across an article from Microsoft MVP, Mohana Krishna Yadav. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I want to give credit where credit's due. Posted a blog article that basically points out that the determining factor that says, is an app or an extension going to get uninstalled when an update is applied? It depends how that extension or app is deployed. If it was deployed by going into Business Central, opening extensions and choosing the upload extension option, then that extension will remain installed. However, if you have a developer who is developing an extension and they're deploying the extension directly from Visual Studio Code, those are not allowed to be installed. So those are the ones being uninstalled during updates.
It's interesting. I'd like to actually do a little bit more research to see why that is.
Yep. Yeah. So the takeaway, at least, and who knows? Maybe that'll change in the future. But at least the takeaway now is, one, just understand that there is a reason, there is, logic behind the madness.
Yeah.
But also that if you can, use the extension management page in Business Central to upload new versions of extensions and upload new extensions. Because what you don't want, right, every time an update gets applied, over time you may end up with 10 or 20 or 50 extensions in your Business Central environment. You don't want those being uninstalled and having to go reinstall those every time an update's applied.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really, really helpful article. So I thought,
Yeah, it's definitely a great
we
tip.
should share that.
Definitely a
today.
great tip. And I wonder if, like you said, over time when you get so many extensions and whatnot, if it's going to be any sort of an issue when you're uninstalling 50 extensions and then it's trying to reinstall them back.
Yeah,
It's updated. If
it
they're not.
might be. I don't know if I have 50, but I might have close to that
Yeah.
in one of my environments, and I have not had any issues with my environment being updated on a regular basis. A lot of mine are apps. I do have some custom extensions that that are in there, but
no issues.
so far. No.
Nice. Sounds good. Also, next on the list, I guess, would be the database export.
Yeah. So one of the new features that came out, I believe it was with the 2019 Wave 2 release, was the ability to create an export of your Business Central database. And how this is done is within the Business Central Admin Center. If you open up one of your environments, actually it's only your production environment.
Okay.
So you can only, first of all, do a database export for your production environment.
Okay.
So you have a new option to called Create Database Export. So when this first was announced and within the documentation, it was kind of vague.
Yeah.
What does this mean? What I can just create a SQL database, like a backup file?
That's exactly what I would think.
And then I
first
can just
video.
restore that onto like a local SQL Express
Yeah.
and run reports, or what
And
is that?
So you're saying you're going to be the bearer of bad news that it's not that simple?
Well, it is not that simple. So what it does is it uses Azure SQL. So in order to do this, you have to have an Azure portal account
Yeah.
and create an Azure SQL kind of database container to hold the database.
Wow.
And then when you go in and select this Create Database Export option, you can pick the parameters of what your file name is, what your container name is on SQL Azure, and then you can export your database into that SQL Azure environment.
Wow.
Okay.
So it sounds a little bit more complicated than.
Yeah, I think
I
probably
imagine.
most of our customers that we work with on Business Central Cloud probably are going to need our help.
Mhm.
So that's something that definitely, if you're not sure what that might entail, contact your partner.
Yeah.
They should be able to walk you through those steps of what's required to do that. Probably will be some fees, right? Because you're using
course.
Azure SQL database services.
Right.
So you're going to have at least some storage fees to use
Monthly.
that service on Azure. And also, the last little thing is that there's a note on here where it's keeping track. It says each environment is limited to 10 exports per month. And then it actually shows me this environment has 10 exports remaining for this month. So it's actually tracking how many times you've exported the database.
Now, what's your take on the number they give you, 10 per month?
I think
It's a
what
good
they're,
amount.
I'm not sure. I didn't see anything specifically on it, but I'm pretty sure what they're looking to avoid people doing is creating a database export like on a high frequency,
Yeah.
maybe every hour or more often. So they're actually like replicating the Business Central database in a SQL Azure environment. I think they want to avoid that because that would put a lot of load or stress
Yeah.
on the
On their
Business Central
servers.
environment.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to limit that by just saying 10 a month. You can create 10 kind of backup copies on a monthly basis.
Yeah. But like you said, it's also definitely something that your partner would have to get involved with and help you out.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you have someone in your organization who's technically competent, or like an IT person,
Yeah.
or someone who's familiar with Azure, they definitely can go do it for you. You don't have to use your partner to do it.
Right.
But, most of our customers who are using Business Central, right, they love Business Central because they don't need an IT staff. They don't have to have a dedicated IT resource to do these things for them, right? It's a cloud getting updated automatically. There's no software to install. All those great things that come with it being a cloud application, right, means that they probably don't have that IT person who understands that. So.
Right, and speaking of having your partner help out and being technically savvy and adapt and whatnot, there is this, website out there called Microsoft Learn. This is going to be a pretty good segue into our next segment. So Microsoft Learn offers between 102 to 105 training videos, what we last saw. And would you say it's pretty good at giving you high-level overview of Business Central modules, or is it more in-depth than a high-level overview?
I think it's more in-depth than high-level.
Okay.
I think, I kind of went, we touched on this during our last, we kind of introduced the Microsoft Learn last month. And we went in and we kind of talked about how there's about 102 or 105 modules.
Right.
And so we kind of left it at that. So, but we dug a little bit deeper over the last month on this. And what I found was I did a little tally here. I went in and I looked at all of the different modules. And what I found is that there's over 7,100 minutes of videos.
Free videos, right?
Free videos available on Business Central.
That's amazing.
So over 102 modules, that's 118 hours of video-based training for Business Central.
That's thousands and thousands of dollars saved.
So the average module, you're talking about almost 70 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? So about an hour per module. A lot of them are 30 to 40 minutes, but some of them are 3 hours or 3.5 hours.
So they get very in-depth.
So very in-depth. So this is not, something where it's, here's how you open the system and here's what a roll center is.
Yeah.
This is like, for example, I went ahead and went through the course. I'm like, what's something that's not typical? What's something that not every customer uses? And what came to mind was a feature called item charges, where you can take, like, let's say inbound handling, inbound shipping or freight, and you can take an invoice from a freight vendor, and you can actually apply that invoice to previously received inventory that came from a different vendor. So these are called item charges. So I went out and I did a search. There's a whole module or course where I got a badge
for charges.
Passing item charges. It was a
Wow.
5-minute video, walk through how to create a new purchase document, create the item charge line, what the different options are for assigning the item charges, posted the transaction and showed the results and how it created value entries to assign. And then when I was done, it kind of walks you through. So there's also some traditional documentation that you can read through if you want. And then at the end, you can take a little test. So I took a 4-question test, and I passed.
Nice.
4 out of 4.
First try?
Thank you very much. First try.
Nice.
And then when I passed the test, it said, "Congratulations, you earned a badge."
Oh, real nice.
So I got my
So you
first
feel good about
my
it,
first
too.
badge.
That's great. Congratulations.
And it checks it off. Now, if you're going to do, I actually did this. I started it and I was not logged in. So, and I took the item, I went through the item charges topic. Took about under 10 minutes to go through the whole thing. And then at the end, it said you've earned a badge but if you want to get your badge, you need to sign in.
Right.
So at that point, I actually signed in, and then it applied my badge to my account.
Nice. So let's just say you were a customer. From a customer's perspective, do you think that they could go in, do this training, and not need the help of a partner for whatever it is, and just be an expert on whatever the topic is that they want?
I do.
Okay.
So with kind of a caveat, So if a customer, let's stick with this item charges example. If we assume that the customer knows that they want to deploy the item charges feature within Business Central, then this is an effective tool to teach them how to do that.
Okay.
But the problem is, what we are, in our experience anyway, a user isn't going to know that they need to use the item charges feature to assign those inbound purchasing freight to their inventory cost. Right? So what they're going to say is they're going to typically contact us and say, hey, I got this vendor for my freight. I would like to add this freight bill to the value of my inventory, because that's actually part of the cost of my inventory. So I want it to become part of my cost of goods sold. Is there a way I can do that in Business Central? And we would say, yeah, it's called item charges.
Okay.
Now, historically, we then would have had to provide 15 minutes of training or 30 minutes of training on how that item charge feature works and answer their questions. What I think is cool now is that we can do that. We can say, yeah, you want to use the item charges feature. The customer now has the opportunity to go out to Microsoft Learn, pull up, find the item charges, walk through it, go into their sandbox, set it up, test it out, make sure they like how it works, and then deploy it. And then if they have any questions, then they can contact us and say, hey, I was using this, but we have this scenario where we need to apply the freight to transfer orders. Does it work? Can I do that? Right? Or whatever the question might be.
Right. So what do you think the overall consensus would be then from partners with Microsoft putting out free training material?
Right.
Do you think they're going to be for it, against it? I mean, is it going to cut into their money-making abilities? What do you think?
Yeah, so historically, as a Microsoft partner, we've been selling Dynamics for years. A significant portion of our revenue came from training new customers and existing customers on how to use the software. And so, yeah, there is that element. But what's I think is different today is people's expectations that they're not going to have to pay for that. Either because they believe that they are just going to be able to figure it out on their own.
Right, I think the expectation of out-of-the-box software.
Which is, I personally believe, is unrealistic.
Yeah.
Or that there are free training tools available.
Right.
Which
they can
now
find whatever they want on YouTube.
Right, which now is the case. So, and yeah, there's always been what's available on YouTube, but you got to do some work sometimes to find the right video. You might spend 30 minutes looking at garbage until you finally come upon something that's useful.
Yeah.
Now Microsoft is doing it. They're making sure it's complete and accurate.
So they're just adapting with the times. I mean,
I think
they want
so.
to be the one who's giving the information, who's educating the consumer, as opposed to some random person.
Right. And as a partner, and as a customer too, I think it's important that they know that there are all of these tools available out there. I mean, there's stuff, from everything, from setting up your environment, setting up your chart of accounts, creating vendors, creating customers, creating new purchase orders, creating journal entries, running financial statements, creating data sets to use with Power BI. All of this, it's all there. 7,000 minutes of video-based training that's there today. Who knows how much more they'll be adding, right, over time. Now from our perspective as a partner, we always want to be here to answer any questions. So what do I think the end result is? I think the end result is that these videos, Microsoft Learn, these tools that they provide will be useful for 80 to 90% of what customers need to know.
Okay.
the 10 to 20% that they will not be able to get answered through here are exceptions. Well, this is great, but we do it this way.
Right.
Or what about this, right? Those things, or where we really provide value, and maybe it's only that 10%, and that's great if that's all we're going to do, is the guidance on should we use this feature?
Makes sense.
Or should we use that feature? Or does this make sense for us to do it this way or that way?
Right.
Kind of the business process consulting on features, right? A common one we talked about earlier today was, should I be using assembly orders or production orders?
Yeah.
There's videos out there that's going to show you how to create an assembly BOM and process an assembly order. But
You don't know if it's the right one.
is that what you should be using, or should you be doing the production BOM?
You still need an expert.
I think so. I think because Business Central it's a very robust application, and especially when it comes to inventory management, there are a lot of features and capabilities and options for how you set up and configure the system that will significantly change your workflow, especially in the area of warehouse management. How you define your location. If you open your location card, for example, there's a warehouse tab, and on that tab, there's a bunch of checkbox fields. One is bin mandatory, require pick, require warehouse shipment, require put away, require warehouse receipt. What do those fields do?
Yeah, you're not going to know.
And what's the impact of using those on your workflow? And can I use those with lots and serial numbers, right?
Yeah, you're not going to know. Yeah, you definitely need the help of a partner or an expert.
Right.
Somebody's got a little bit of expertise.
So those are the things. So overall, I love that this is all out there. It's a tool that we as a partner will use to make sure people are up to speed on certain features and capabilities as we bring new people on board. But also to just be able to point customers to these and go, oh, you want to learn about dimensions? Go out to Microsoft Learn. Spend an hour watching that video, and then call me and let me know what questions you have.
Right. So it's a great starting point. Might even save them a little bit of money. But so it's a great tool. We are in agreement. And with that wraps up our shot at Business Central, unless you've got any more breaking news or anything.
No, I think I'm just already looking forward to our next shot next month. We're going to hopefully be hammering through what's new in this next April 1 release coming up.
A lot of features and everything. So, all right, stay tuned. Next, we're going to be talking about an assisted search app.
Thank you.